Cleansing and detoxification, a new beginning. This is more than about smoking and drinking. This is about what you eat, drink, breathe, think, move, and sleep. This is the foundation of your health. This is about the quality of your life. Here are some answers you should know. Why no one knows why you're so sick. The power stronger than genetics. How some detox or cleanses are harmful. Why the wonder cure was a dud for you. The natural effective solution for your symptoms. And simple steps you can take today. Toxicity equals dis-ease. True toxicity is having more of one or more chemicals or environmental influence in your body than you can handle. It causes dis-ease. Now, true disease is specific tissue damage or dysfunction with a specific collection of associated signs or symptoms. This is what doctors look for. Do you have a disease? Let's check your blood. Then there's dis-ease. It's a non-specific tissue dysfunction that may or may not have associated signs or symptoms. You can't find the cause. That's one specific tissue. You can't find it in the blood as a disease process. Symptoms of dis-ease. They may include excess weight, hormone imbalance, headache, fatigue, fibromyalgia, joint and muscle pains, sleep problems, allergies and autoimmunity, brain fog, low immunity. What about the life of the diseased person? This may be you or someone you know. You see one specialist after another. The rheumatologist for the joint pain, the gastroenterologist for the intestinal problems, or the reflux, the neurologist, and finally, perhaps the psychologist. And you take one medication after another, the anti-inflammatory, antacids, antibiotics, painkillers, and perhaps antidepressants. Are you lost in the system? Or is it a system that is lost? Specific tissue damage or disease. That's the problem. They can't find it. It can't be measured in the blood. It can't be seen in the microscope. Similar deficiencies and toxicities don't cause the same symptoms every time. This doesn't fit what we found in the book. So perhaps you get the diagnosis of a syndrome. This is a curse disguised as a blessing because no one looks for the cause anymore. Well, of course you feel that way. You have so-and-so syndrome. I'm sorry. Would you like a different medication? Well, what about genetics? Oh, we've learned so much. We've mapped the human genome. This is now the computer chip or the blueprint for the body. Is there hope for a future cure? Well, the genome doesn't explain our individual function or dysfunction. We still have biochemical individuality. As hair and personality vary, so do individual biochemical needs and ability. One of these differences we call SNPs. They're single nucleotide polymorphisms. They're tiny but common in numerous differences between individuals' genetic code causing biochemical individuality. We're different, we know that. But now we can explain why. Epigenetics. This is one of the explanations. This is the computer program that drives the computer chip. So genes are the hardware or the computer chip. The H and M, that's histones and methylation patterns we see on this gene over here, flashing. These are the software. They help determine which parts of the genes will be expressed. We've learned that in utero environment is more predictable of high blood pressure than the genes are. And inherited genetic factors only make up a minor, which is up to 42%, contribution to susceptibility in most types of neoplasms or cancers. So even in identical twins, genetic factors only show us some of the reality, what will eventually be expressed in the person's body. Epigenetics. Time magazine did a special on this. You can change your genes and your kids' genes. It's amazing. And that's what we just saw with the methylation groups and the histones. Then there's nutrigenomics. You can activate or deactivate your genes. So you've got genes, you've got methyl groups and histones, and then you have modifiable chemical messengers. What you eat, drink, breathe, think, move, and sleep change these modifiable chemical messengers, which then change the expression of your genes. The point is, your genetic tendency does not determine your destiny. You have the power to change the function of your body and your ultimate health. Whether it's cancer, alcoholism, obesity, diabetes, suicide, aggression, you name it. There may be genetic tendencies, but you have the power to influence both your epigenetics and your nutrigenomics. Ultimately, how your body functions or how healthy you are. So, dysfunction or function of your body is determined partly by your genes, yes, but also largely by your environment, both the internal and external environment of your body. So what are the modifiers of genetic expression or function? It's no big secret. What you eat, drink, breathe, think, move, and sleep. And there are other modifiable factors like your body's structure, intestinal environment, and your body's ability to detoxify. These all feed in to influence in a synergistic way how your body functions. And too many of us, these are negative influences. Now, how the environment leads to toxicity and how toxicity leads to disease. Well, it's about high exposure and low ability. So we have toxins in our environment. What we eat, drink, breathe, think, move, and sleep. That feeds into our bodies, causing toxicity, and those can be detoxified or handled as long as we have the ability. If there's not too much exposure and we have the ability, then we can detoxify and we'll be okay. This picture shows Lucy and Ethel. Some of you may remember that episode, a TV show long ago. It was a chocolate factory, and chocolate was coming in on conveyor belt, and their job was to pack it up, put it in a box neatly, and move it on. Stack it, get the next chocolate. Well, it just kept coming faster and faster and faster. Just like the toxin exposure in our environment, the stress in our environment, our sedentary lifestyle. And eventually, they couldn't handle it. They ended up stuffing it in their hats and their mouths and their shirts. They became overloaded. And that happens to us too. That's when it begins to negatively affect our body. We have too much negative exposure to these modifiable factors. This poster illustrates a little more physiologically how this works. Toxins enter our body, or they may be produced inside our body, and then they're absorbed. Our liver, its job is to detoxify, so it works on it. And it partially detoxifies. If it's not working well, it won't be able to fully detoxify. In fact, the first step, it doesn't fully detoxify. It can be even more toxic, and then it's stored in our body if we don't get rid of it. We may reabsorb it back in through our intestines, or we may release it from our fatty tissues. And then it recirculates through the body, causes more damage. So toxicity leads to disease or disease. I'll give you some examples of how this happens in the research. How we eat, drink, and breathe affects our disease or disease. Half of almost every type of cancer can be traced back to food intake. Wow. Uranium-238, consistently high in patients' hair samples in certain parts of the country. just because of the soil in our environment. Air pollution ratings for cities and regions do not even include many of the toxins like pesticides from crops. And living near sprayed crops actually raises risk of Parkinson's. So these are critical things we should know about and we need to be able to defend against in our bodies. So you're eating and drinking heavy metals also: lead, cadmium, mercury, arsenic, nickel, aluminum. Lead is continually found in even children's toys thought safe. Arsenic exposure, we know from wood preservatives in play equipment for kids. More and more they're producing play equipment without this arsenic, but a lot of it's still around there, and it falls off in the ground next to the play equipment. And this heavy metals damages organs, may slow reading, talking, academic progress, and cause behavioral problems like hyperactivity. It can cause other signs and symptoms like neurological and physical headache, fatigue, muscle or joint pain, indigestion, tremors, anemia, dizziness. The most common chemical toxicants include solvents, cleaning materials, formaldehyde, pesticides, herbicides, food additives. They can cause things like depression, headaches, mental confusion, mental illness, abnormal nerve reflexes. Do you have any of those symptoms? Do you have any solvents or cleaning materials or pesticides, herbicides, food additives, of course? What about formaldehyde? Well, formaldehyde is found high exposure in these jobs: beautician, pharmacist, mortician, chemist, lab tech, doctor or nurse of any kind, a firefighter, photographer, printer. They have found that people with these occupations had a 30% increase of getting ALS, which is a nerve disorder, also called Lou Gehrig's disease. It's a tragic, progressive, degenerative nerve disorder. Also, you can get formaldehyde high exposure from these products that include press board, which will be found in your furniture or your walls. And flame retardants. Well, where are they? That's just on a firefighter suit, right? It's strongly correlated with low thyroid function in women and low virility in men. They did a test of house dust. Yes, the dust in your house. And they found high exposure from house dust and all the flame retardant products that contribute to house dust, like mattresses and couches. Pesticides, like organochlorine pesticides, and PCBs. PCBs were banned in 1979, but they're still persistent in our environment. Oh, but not that much, right? Well, actually a lot less than there used to be. But there were 287 chemicals detected in umbilical cord blood. This was in 2005. We know that 180 of these cause cancer in humans or animals. 217 are toxic to the brain and nervous system. 208 cause birth defects or abnormal development in animal tests. The dangers of pre- or postnatal exposure in this complex mixture of carcinogens and toxins and neurotoxins hasn't been studied. And that's the issue. These small amounts, they probably wouldn't cause a problem, any one of those, but 287. So these combinations are a toxic soup that really is concerning. But you can't do anything about it, right? Well, I wouldn't be telling you if I thought you couldn't do anything about it. So even low dose amounts of POPs, or what's also called persistent organic pollutants, have been shown to increase the risk of obesity, dyslipidemia, that's cholesterol problems, triglycerides, and insulin resistance, which is precursor to diabetes and cardiovascular disease.